last time that we spoke, I was talking about how a real estate market will go through your general look. Each location is different. Where a city or a county is in its growth phase will differ. And so the cycle in one market may be different than the cycle in another market. We are all subject to macro events, such as the lending crisis of 2008. But the availability of credit, for now at least, seems to still be intact, just a little more expensive than it was a year ago. So we have to look at how that's impacting investments. One of the key factors to realize is that in residential real estate, you are seeing a substantial increase in the cost of housing due to the rapid rate increases by the Fed. But that is all on the short term. If you look at the yield curve, we're not very much impacted at the 20-year and beyond. And as a result, most of the commercial loans have maintained rates similar to where they were, not exact, but very close to where we were a year ago. So, if you've got a good relationship with a commercial bank, and you've got a little money in their institution, and you've done work in the past, you can talk to them about loans that are going to be 5 or short, sub 5 on a 20-year amortization. So that really hasn't hurt us that bad. If you're in the office segment or retail, that's a different story. Depending on your market, you may be seeing substantial vacancy rates. But in my market, that's not the case. And I don't focus tremendously on the office and retail side of the commercial market. I focus primarily on the multifamily side. So my company, Reformation Asset Management, is a firm where we work with a smaller number of clients. Right now, we only have 27 clients. And our goal is that we manage their assets from the perspective of the return on equity that they have. So we place them into value opportunities as a broker, and then we have the property management arm. Then I have maintenance, and I have lawn care, and then I have a 51-person construction company with 2 general contractors, my own electrician, HVAC, et cetera. And then I have, the plotter and the draftsman and all of that under my roof as well. So we can go in and either develop raw land, or we can find an existing structure and then develop a remodeling plan for that structure to unleash value that's inherent in that opportunity. And we start off with some clients that only buy a duplex, but eventually we get to the point where, as the return on their equity gets into the single digits, we are leveraging them higher through the 1031 exchange in the density arena. So go from 2 units to 4, from 4 to 8, from 8 to 16, et cetera. And so the longer they stay with us as their asset manager, the greater we grow their wealth and their holdings. So that's in a nutshell what we do as a firm. I've been a broker since 1992. I started off in San Diego, California, and then I held concurrent licenses in Nevada and California, working in Las Vegas and San Diego. Originally from Los Angeles. So I watched a lot of the, boom that both of those, all 3 of those areas have gone through in my lifetime. And in the early 2000s, I looked at the metrics that I chose, Las Vegas and San Diego, and applied them nationally, broke it down to 5 cities that I went and physically visited. Durham was one of those 5 cities. And when I got here, I just couldn't believe what I saw. It just made no sense to me. The gross rent multipliers that were 2s and 3s. And so I went back to San Diego, got my general contractor, said, come on, you got to come out and look at this place. Brought him out here and looked, and just we knew we had to move here. Great recession hit, slowed things down, but ever since then, it's just been a bottle rocket. And there are properties that we bought for $40,000 that today are worth $300,000. And the only thing that changed is the neighborhood. What I mean by that is the median household income of the neighborhood is what changed. So what that boils down to is jobs. So first and foremost, when you're looking to invest in a community and you want to have a return that's going to, be outsized, you want to see wage growth that is coming in from people moving to the area for high-paying jobs. And Durham was lucky enough to have announcements from Meta, Google, and Apple that they were all opening offices in the Triangle here. So that was huge. We're the only city in America that had all three of them announce they were opening offices in that one place. Where are we at in the market is that there's just not enough supply. The builders were not building enough before the rates went up, and now that the rates are higher, they had issues. You had the pandemic, you had the commodities prices, now you have interest rates. So the builders are playing it cool, and they're just not producing a lot of supply. And the segment of the market that's been locked out the most during this rush to housing in the last several years is the first-time home buyer. They are having the hardest time back then and now trying to find a home. Before, because the earnest money and due diligence deposits were so outsized that first-time home buyer just didn't have enough cash to compete. And now with the interest rates being pushed up and them on the residential side being affected by that, they're having trouble. And so we're going back to some of the tricks that we had in the early 90s, like our 2-1 buy downs, so that we're able to incentivize the buyer to purchase our product by offering them an interest rate that is paid down by the seller on the front end, so that for the first 2 years, they're paying an under market interest rate on their loan. And then at some point within the next 2 years, they can refinance that loan into whatever the standard rate is, which most analysts predict will be lower than it is today. All right, so that's a lot of stuff out of the way. What I feel has investment opportunity if you're in that situation, which is where you have job growth, you have wage growth, and you are looking at a supply of existing rental housing that has become outdated and therefore functionally obsolescent. We will look to acquire properties that are in that category. One project that we're bringing to the market this month is a collection of 6 buildings that had 18 units in each building for a total of 108 units that I acquired from 4 separate owners. Even though it's one community, there were 4 separate owners that owned. One had 3 buildings, 3 people had 1 building each. And so I had to assist my client in acquiring all 4 of those buildings and then go through the design process of converting these apartments into condominiums that would be attractive to a first-time home buyer, and still so amenitize them so that they feel like a home and offer the amenities that you would want in a condominium community, but do it at a price point that allows the buyer to purchase the property and have monthly payments all inclusive that would match what the median rent would be for the same product. So it's kind of, it becomes a no-brainer for my buyer, right? They walk through and they go, well, gosh, I can have all of this and I own it, or I can go pay the same amount of money and rent it. And that's what you want to do. You want to create that situation where the buyer says, why would I continue to rent? Unless they're a very transitory individual, most people would prefer to build equity rather than, just pay the money to their landlord every month. Although I do appreciate the tenants that pay the landlords. So when you're looking for a property like this, one of the things that you really want to make sure that you're looking for or identifying is there any hidden upside to the property? So through the zoning and the use that is in law today versus what it was built, say, 50 years ago, is there the opportunity for me to add units? You might have a situation where the density when this property was built allowed for 108 doors, but now the density has increased because over the years, the zoning board voted for higher increased housing per acre. And so if you have extra land on that property and the zoning will allow, you may actually be able to build additional units to add value to that property, in addition to doing a remodel on the property. So when you're looking at properties, make sure you're looking for space that could be utilized, and then you're examining the zoning and the usage laws for that property and in that neighborhood to identify if there's an opportunity for you to add. And you don't necessarily have to only be adding apartments or condos. You could be adding garages, or you could be adding storage, or add something that brings value to the property that allows you to increase the amount that you would ask for the unit as an individual unit being sold, or something you could add to the complex if you're keeping it as a rental property that would allow you to increase the rents overall. You also want to make sure that when you're purchasing a property, whether it's going to be, especially if it's going to be for condo usage, that you want to make sure that your zoning will allow, or your planning department will allow for you to go through this process. There are rare instances where you might run into a property that is capped because of some affordable housing mandate that was assigned to the property. You want to definitely, take that into account if you're trying to do what I'm discussing, because if there were certain percentages of units that had to be offered as affordable rental units, if you do get the authority and the nod to convert them to condos, you will likely have to offer some of those condos as affordable units to individual buyers. And so make sure that you have that, as a talking point is as you're going through the planning and design of the property, so that when you have to talk to your planning and zoning board at your city level, you can offer that, or at least be prepared to answer questions if they ask you. Loan terms, again, for the buyer, we can offer incentives that will provide them with a low barrier to entry from the monthly payment perspective, but they still have to qualify at the actual rate. So, make sure that when you're, again, developing your pricing plan, you're putting it at the midpoint where you're going to achieve the highest number of interested parties. So for my payment's going to wind up being about $1,650 a month. And that is something that a person making $70,000 a year, or two people making $35,000 a year, can afford. And $35,000 a year in my area is, an assistant manager at Forever 21 and a barista. So, it's not like we're not picking up a huge part of the market. We've got a lot of opportunity for buyers. And that is, again, the segment of the market that's been left out, shut out. So I think that if you are looking to invest in something that will have a large buyer market and only improve as rates decline, I would suggest finding properties that you can identify that you can turn for whatever your budget is based on your area, and then re-offer that to the first-time home buyer. I think that there's just a lot of people out there. And remember this, we had interest rates at never be seen rate, low rates, just they were crazy. I've got a 2.25 on my house, and I don't want to give that up. Well, how many other homeowners are out there that are sitting at that 2.25 to 3% range that don't want to give up that price, that rate? So they're really struggling with whether or not they even want to move up. So we're dealing with a market right now where the only sellers really are people that have to sell. They're being relocated. There was a death. There was a divorce. Some life change is occurring that's causing them to sell. But unless they find just like their absolute dream home, they don't want to give up that great interest rate. First-time home buyers are not locked into an interest rate, so they're not giving anything up other than their landlord. So they're the market that I want to go after right now. Why fight? The old saying is you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Well, you know what? Just look for thirsty horses. And right now, those first-time home buyers are thirsty. They're looking for a product. They want to stop paying rent. Rent has been going up like crazy for the last 5-6 years, and they're tired of it. I pretty much, that's where I'm going to end it right there and let you guys start asking some questions.